the number of billion-dollar disasters as the government calls and tracks them. I did want to go a little deeper on that. If you look back over the last, say, 40 years, the average number of those disasters, inflation adjusted, something like 7 or 8 on average per year. But as you mentioned, in the last 5 years, there's been more like 18 per year. And these include massive events, like Hurricane Ian from last fall, but also lesser known but still destructive events all around the country: flash floods, cold snaps, wildfires. What worries you about that trend? And is FEMA and the federal government honestly equipped, to deal with that many disasters, especially if that number continues to rise?
I think, Brady, the thing that worries me the most about this trend is the movement of people that we see happening across the nation. COVID-19 really spurred an opportunity for many people to move into different areas. They moved from a lot of urban centers and into coastal areas or more rural areas. And they haven't experienced perhaps some of the threats and the risks that these communities are facing. And so what really worries me is that as this trend continues to change, that we need to take the time now to educate people on what the risks are where they live. The other part that worries me is the nature of these storms is continuing to change. We talk about Hurricane Ian, and Hurricane Ian hit in a very similar spot of Florida that Hurricane Charlie did. But Hurricane Charlie and Ian were very different storms. Hurricane Charlie was primarily a wind event, but Hurricane Ian brought 19 feet of storm surge and extreme rain. And what we're seeing is that these events are different than what we would have faced perhaps several years ago. And people have a misconception of what the risk is that they're going to face from these types of storms. So we really do have our work cut out for us in making sure that we are helping people across the nation understand what their unique risk is where they live. Now, whether FEMA is equipped to continue to respond at the rate that we're going, it would be a challenge, right? So we need to take the time now to invest in a couple of different things. One, as far as the response rate, we used to plan our readiness cycle around the peak of hurricane season, and we would make sure that we had the staffing available for this short period of time in the summer. But I think, as you're seeing, our operational tempo is constant year round, and it has been for the last several years. So we are taking a step back in reevaluating how it is we need to be structured in order to sustain a year-round operational tempo instead of one that really peaks at a certain point of the year and then levels out. So we have some work to do. We've made some progress, but we have a ways to go yet in order to make sure that we can continue to keep up with this level of events. But we have to start investing. We have to invest in helping communities reduce the impacts from these events. If we continue on this rate, we're just going to continue to respond, recover, rinse, and repeat. And we have to stop that cycle. We have to reduce the impacts, invest in mitigation, which also means personal preparedness, and make sure that we are building resilience. Even after disaster, we're building that resilience as we're rebuilding the community so we can better absorb the shocks and the stressors that these communities are experiencing.